5th grade. Today we're going to start some of our anatomy lesson with learning how to draw people by literally starting with the bare bones. This is Mr. Bones 2.0. The original Mr. Bones was a Halloween skeleton that I got on discount after Halloween one year, and he wasn't very accurate. Mr. Bones 2.0 is accurate. He is a Mr., and we know this because his pelvis is kind of narrow. When I ask the classes why this would indicate that he's a male, we come to the conclusion that it's because the male hips are more narrow because they don't have to go through childbirth. I'll just wait for everybody to have that moment of like, ew, which is usually what happens because we're a silly creature that finds, the whole process of making more of us pretty gross. Anyway, Tavish and Mr. Bones are going to help us to understand figurative proportions, and we're going to be making a skeleton in the journals that you made or whatever sketchbooks you're using or whatever piece of paper. We're going to make a two-proportion skeleton, and later on in the coming weeks we're going to put some transparencies over it to show the muscles. And the reason why in drawing we learn so much about the science part of humans is because it's going to help you make your people look more realistic. You ready to get started? Mr. Bones is going to have to be sitting though with us because I forgot to bring his stand home.
There's another skeleton too.
Now the average person is about 7 heads high to sometimes 7.5 heads high, but when you're young, you're not fully grown. If we measured how big the head is, so Tavish's head is about 6 inches high. Can you stand up? So let's see how many heads tall he is. So we have 6 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So he's about 4.5 heads high. Now his head probably won't get way too much bigger in his life. It'll continue to grow, but it's not going to get way too much bigger. And remember we talked about how babies' eyes are out of proportion with their heads because their eyes are fully grown and their bodies are tiny, so it looks like they have bigger eyes than they do. Well, for you folks, you're probably about 6 heads high, maybe 6.5. So if you took a ruler and measured how big your head was and then measured all the way through, you'd get a sense for how much more growing you have to do. And I mean, this isn't an exact science, it's sort of like a rough estimate, but in general, people tend to be about 7 to 7.5 heads high.
Yeah.
Okay, for this, we're going to need the journal we made the other day, or whatever sketchbook that you use, or a piece of paper, whatever you have handy, a Sharpie, a pencil, maybe an eraser, and this is sort of ultimately what we're going to be doing, is that we will have a skeleton, and then muscles, and then a person on top, and I'll show you how we can do this later on. So we do this every year, and we take a few weeks to do it. We do the skeleton together. All of you will have some muscles to learn about, and then we can sort of see how an anatomy plate in a science book would work. One of the reasons that we do this anatomy is because it really does help with the way that you draw people. It's part of a classical art education, and it's also kind of neat to know because we have all these bones and muscles in us, walking around with them, we might as well know what they're called. But when I was in school, we had to do muscle journals, and we had to figure out where the insertion and origin points were. And I still have this from, going back about 20 years, but it really helped the way that I drew in sort of understanding what was really going on under the skin.
So, are you ready to draw?
Yep, I'm ready to draw. Are you ready to draw?
Yeah.
Okay. So, A ruler is a helpful thing to have for this too. I'm going to go across the 2 pages.
Hey, my book's pages are bigger than yours.
Yeah, actually, the size of Tavish's pages are called figurative because when things are in this long, narrow, kind of a rectangle, we automatically think about people's figures. Alright, so I'm going to make 8 boxes, each that are 1 inch.
Okay, so I need the ruler. I'm going to need the ruler to make my boxes.
Go ahead.
Okay. 8-inch boxes. So you like put this here, right? Like you put this here. And then draw 8 boxes.
Mm-hmm. Well, you can go the other way.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I'll show you. That's why you grabbed it from me before I could show you. Alright.
So I'm going to put my 8-inch box about right here. I don't have 8 inches.
Then you could do, if you don't have 8 inches, you could do 4 inches and break them up into half inches.
So I could like put this here and then I could draw a box.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I put this right here. Oh, I don't understand what you were drawing.
Just a box.
Well, were you putting those lines in there, like right in the places where the big lines?
Well, you're on the meter side. We're doing this side. That's the inches side.
So I'm just like following the ruler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we basically want to have sort of a figurative looking rectangle, meaning that it's longer on the sides and short on the ends. And because we measured that human beings are, you know, somewhere between 4.5 heads high to about 7.5 heads, depending on how old we are, that's how we can kind of determine our proportions.
1, 2.
Yep, you need 8 of them.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to start with the skull. So we have 2 main parts of this. We have the skull part and then the mandible, that's the jawbone. And the way that I do this is that I draw a circle with a tinier circle going in it. Exactly, honey.
Like this?
Okay.
Like this, Mommy?
Mm-hmm. And then I trace around the outsides of
But
it.
it has to be darker, so I need a darker man. See, you're making it dark, right? So I'm using a different pen. See, look.
Mm-hmm. Remember, our eye sockets are halfway in our head. They're not up here. They're halfway.
Oh man, I have to erase this.
That's okay. That's why we use pencils.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I fixed it.
And let's label it skull. And mandible.
Alright, I'm gonna write that. S K U L L
That's right.
U L L.
And now I'm going to make a
Wait!
spine line.
Don't start with it yet. I'm not gonna write this word, okay?
That's fine.
Is that with a dark pen too?
Yeah, I was going to do it with the pencil first, but you had the pencil. Now,
Okay.
our spine should go to the bottom of the fourth box,
Okay, so how many?
and then a
That's
little bit halfway in. We are vertebrates, meaning that we have a backbone. Tavish, what animals did we learn about this week that are invertebrates?
Crab.
Yes. This,
Look, I did it.
you did. This right here is called the coccyx. I think there's 2 C's. Yeah. I think I know how to spell it after doing this for 10 years, except it's a little bit different doing it at home. And then this is the spine. And each individual piece of this are vertebrates. This first one, if you ever go into physical therapy or sports medicine, is called Atlas. It's kind of nicknamed that because Atlas holds up the world in mythology.
N-E.
But it's also called
Look,
C1, C1.
I did this, S-R-N-E.
You did. C2, C3, and so forth. This is where you get a lot of, arthritic pain right there. Okay, next about 2 vertebrae down, we're going to make a little line that comes out like this on either side.
I did this. Look it. I did it.
You did. This is our collarbone, and
oh yeah, this is this.
that's right. He's pointing out the collarbone on Mr. Bones, but we're not going to call it the collarbone. We're going to call it by its scientific name, the clavicle.
Mama, you can't do it like that because I don't have enough space. See?
This is also one of these things that we call like a bone that shows. Knowing where the clavicle is really helpful in our drawings. When we draw a head, and then we have our neck. Right here, that line that we do, that's the clavicle. Yep.
I and V-I-C-L-E.
We have kind of a sort of a bit of a stretched out kind of shape, like this, kind of like a coffin-y kind of shape.
See, look, thinner. I made it.
You did. This is called the sternum. If you want to get even more technical, up here is the manubrium and then the xiphoid process. But sometimes this is also called your breastbone, and it's important to be there because it protects where your heart is. Coming down from about the 3rd box, you want to make a kind of shape like this.
Okay. I like a shape like this.
And
look, I did it.
You did.
Oh, look, that's this.
Yup, it is the rib cage.
Look, I'm doing rib cage.
There's a myth that women have an extra rib than men, but that is not true.
But did you draw that little thing that women have on there? Did you?
You mean the pelvis?
Yeah.
Well, we all have a pelvis. Women's pelvises are wider. Do you know why?
But can you draw a men's pelvis right here so I know how to draw a men's pelvis on mine because I'm a boy?
You can draw whatever kind of pelvis that you want.
But where does it go?
Well, we haven't gotten to the pelvis yet. You're jumping ahead. Okay. In the back here, you can't really see it, but it's like a triangle shape. And that is the scapula. Can make a little thing right here.
I did the triangle shape.
This is also sometimes commonly referred to as your shoulder blade, and it's another bone that shows. Okay. Then coming to almost about the third box. We have a bone that kind of looks like that classic bone like this.
That's the arm on Mr. Bone.
It is also called the humerus. Now this might be why people talk about their funny bone and that humerus kind of thing. That's how you can remember it. But your funny bone isn't a bone at all. It's a nerve called your ulnar nerve, and it runs alongside the ulnar bone. If you stand up, you're going to notice that and put your arms all the way down. You're going to notice that your arms go to the bottom, about halfway to your knees. We tend to draw arms too short.
I drew that.
So there's two little bones
Look,
right here.
I did that arm right here.
Nice job, honey. Alright, the little one is your ulna bone. And the larger one is your radius. Okay.
I'm not writing any of the words, really.
That's okay.
You don't really need to.
In school, we go over them every day until we have them memorized, just because it's sort of fun to do, and it's kind of a challenge. If any of you actually do memorize all the bones and want to post a video of you going through them, you, I guess, get extra credit? I don't know. What's a reward that I can give you? If anybody has any good ideas for what a fun challenge reward might be for distance learning, send me an email and we'll see. Okay. Next, we want to make a butterfly shape. Going to the bottom.
Is that the one that girls have to? Girls have to?
And women have a pelvis. And then we just kind of make a bigger one. This.
But I have a bigger.
You don't have a bigger one. You have a more narrow one. Actually, we need our coccyx to go down a little bit more. Okay. That is our tailbone. Because we still have a little residual
Mama, I'm not
going to be
able to do yours because look, I'm getting close to the bottom.
You can do his legs on the other side. If you're starting to run out of room.
No, I'm just going to draw half of him so his legs are going off the point, okay?
Okay. Alright. Coming out of here, and this is the bottom of our 1, 2, 3, about fourth box, fifth box. We have this big bone. This is one of the largest bones in the body, and it's the classic bone that you get when you're thinking about.
I did that.
Like a cartoon bone.
Look, I did that.
You did. Tavish is keeping along with us. This is a femur.
But how do you... a fem?
Yep, F-E-M-U-R.
A female?
Femur. And then there's this little thing that's not quite a bone, but some cartilage. This is the patella in your kneecap. that is another one that shows. And then, because I only did 7 boxes there, that's why I'm kind of going off the edge.
Here, I'll go off the edge with this one.
Yep. Proportions are all about figuring out, once you've drawn the first thing, that's going to determine how big everything else is. So when we first drew that skull that was 1 inch, we're going to need to keep it in proportion. We're going to need those 7.5 to 8 inches. I think one of the common mistakes that we do in proportional drawing is making our heads too big, and I always do it too. You know, you start too far down the page, but we don't want to just try to shove him in. We'd rather have it go off the page and keep him in proportion. Or her. We can make this wider to designate that it's a female if we want to.
Okay.
So the bone in the front is the tibia, and the bone in the back is the fibula.
Yeah.
There are 2 bones in this second part of the leg, just like there are 2 bones in the second part of the arms. And then lastly, we need to do our hands and our feet. Hands tend to be one of the more difficult things, or people find to be difficult in drawing.
I can't do hands because they would cover over my letters, and I don't have space for hands on this side.
Well, we always have a lot of excuses to not draw hands, but we will have one demo coming up that will be all about drawing hands, and you'll see how easy it is. Okay, so there's a lot of bones in your hands, and your hand is big enough to cover your whole face. So if you want to, put your hand over your face and make sure that you don't have a sibling around to knock it into your face.
My hand isn't big in my face.
Yeah, that's because you're out of proportion, because your head is really big and you're not fully grown yet. And coming out of here are more bones, and our finger bones.
I can't draw them.
These are our carpals, and then the bones up your hand a little bit are the metacarpals. And then your finger bones are called the metacarpal phalanges. And then in our feet, which go off the page, I'm going to foreshorten them a little bit so we can kind of keep them along as if our bones were coming at us.
Well, I can't even draw my feet because, look, I'm too close. Here, I'm going to stuff my feet in here, right here.
Yeah, maybe let's not stuff our feet in. These are foreshortened like they're coming at us, but we wanted to draw those feet with a little bit more accuracy. Sort of like this. You have more bones in your feet than you do most of your body.
Let me go to step 2 and do that, what you're doing. I'm going to go to step 2.
These are the tarsals, metatarsals, and the toe bones are the metatarsal phalanges.
Look, I did it.
Oh, Tavish did it too.
Mine is tinier because I'm a kid.
So that's our skeleton. For a quick review: skull, mandible, spine and vertebrae, clavicle, scapula, sternum, ribcage, humerus, radius and ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and metacarpal phalanges, pelvis and coccyx, femur, patella, fibula and tibia, tibia's in the front, and tarsals, metatarsals, and metatarsal phalanges. Whew. Mr. Bones is heavy. In fact, a lot of our weight comes from our skeleton. It's important to have that structure for us to move about. Just like it's important to have the intellectual structure of the skeleton when we do our drawings. If it seemed like a lot of science and the math of proportions so far, next week we'll be approaching this from a little bit more of a gut instinct with drawing gesture drawings. So until then, be well, have fun drawing your skeletons, and see if anybody can do the challenge of memorizing all the bones. And if you have any ideas for rewards or, extrinsic motivation and distance learning, let me know, because we're all in this together right now. Take care, folks.